Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hope Dealer broadcast with Dr. Hooten, recently rated best podcast of the millennium for the entire universe. Today, I've got a very special guest with us, Aileen, who, if you've been around the office, you know her. Say hi, Aileen.
Hi.
Aileen, if you don't know this, she was recently given the #1 chiropractic office team member rating by the solar system. So we are very happy to have you around, and I've got her today to talk about some of the amazing testimonies that we've had around the office. So Aileen, before we get into some of the stories, how long have you been here?
A little over 2 years now.
Man, time flies.
I know.
We're having a great time. I really could not have guessed that, which says a lot about our chemistry around here. It's not always perfect.
Right.
We are a family. And for those of you that have been in the office, hopefully you feel that way also. That's a big part of people's healing, I think. How did you find us?
It was through my husband. He had slipped in the shower and hurt his back. And it took him about 2 weeks to come in. And he drugged me in here with him.
So your husband was my daughter's martial arts instructor when
Right.
she was seriously the cutest thing on the planet. I think 4 is when she started.
Yeah.
So that's how we met. And then I had forgotten Gio hurt himself.
Mm-hmm.
Had he gotten an MRI or anything? Do you remember anything like that?
No, he was just out of work for a couple of weeks.
Oh, so he was out of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful that he came in
Yeah.
for himself and for you. Well, what of all the stories we've had, of all the testimonies, which two stand out in your mind? And then I'm going to walk people through how we help them.
Miss K was one of the first big ones that I had heard, and I was just amazed because I got to meet her personally and see how she healed.
And now everybody watching this, hold your breath or take a big breath. What did Miss K have when she came? Do you remember?
She had cancer all over.
Yep, and she came to me way before we met.
Mm-hmm.
14 years ago now, I think. And she had cancer in 6 organs. Liver, kidney, I think both lungs, breast, bladder.
Mm-hmm.
With, the doctors saying you've got to do X, Y, and Z if you want any chance to live. And what did you see happen to her? What happened?
I just saw her. I had seen her after her body had healed, and she was cancer free, and it just amazed me.
Yes, cancer free is exactly what happened. Now, not a weird chiropractic opinion. She went and had 2 scans, mm-hmm. 2 different scans, 2 different oncologists telling her there was no more cancer in her body. She never did an ounce of chemo, mm-hmm. never did 1 treatment of radiation. How in the world does that happen? So if you're out there talking to somebody and you're going to tell them about Miss K, and they say, what on earth are you talking about? You're going to the chiropractor, and you're not just any chiropractor, you're going to that crazy Dr. Hooten fella. How is that going to help Miss K beat cancer? What would you say to that? How does that work? Just from the top, from your hip, just shoot from there. How does it work?
Well, you moved the bones, and her body was allowed to heal.
That is a fantastic answer. Obviously, I'm not curing cancer. I'm not even
Right.
treating cancer. You could say I'm treating Miss K. Mm-hmm. You help with treating people, by the way. We treat the person so they fix themselves. And we're going to get into some videos later on, some more podcasts about how cancer develops. And once you understand that, it's actually easy to understand how somebody would beat it. With her, she did 2 things. Her spine, we x-rayed her spine. Her spine was a mess. She was 72 when we met and on a walker. Mm-hmm. Well, once she started care and getting her spine working, she lost like 60 or 80 pounds, I think. Lost the walker for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then when she turned 82 or 83, I think she pulled that walker back out. She was hurting a little bit. But the cancer stayed at bay, and she kept most of that weight off. starting with her spine. So if you've watched any of our podcasts in the past, we talk about the role of your spine and how your body works. And regardless of what you believe about cancer or disease or anything else, your body runs through your nervous system, through your brain and spinal cord. Not an opinion. If you take your brain and spine out, obviously what happens to your heart? It stops. If you take your brain out, everything stops. Your immune system, the way your body detects cancer cells, because we all have cancer cells every day. I want my brain and spinal cord registering healthy cells, cancer cells, viruses. I want my brain to know all that, so I want my brain and spine to be flowing like a wide open river. The floodgates out, so my brain and spine can regulate everything and heal me. One easy thing to understand about healing is, let's say that I take a piece of paper and cut my arm right here. Well, how does that heal? Isn't it amazing? How does your body know to send platelets there and scab it up and then regenerate, grow new skin cells? How does it know to do that? This is how we're programmed, right? Well, if you take the brain out, then you cut your arm with a piece of paper, is your arm going to heal? Absolutely not. There will be no blood flow. Your brain is even in charge of your blood flow. Your brain's in charge of your blood pressure. So, of course, it's in charge of your body being strong enough to not get cancer. Now, so she came, at first, when she started getting adjusted, she came twice a day. Like, she would come in the morning, and then she would come in the afternoon. Sometimes she would stay for an hour or so. Maybe they would go for a walk or go get something to eat and come back, and we would do 2 adjustments. So just to help her body get as much brain and nerve flow as she possibly could. The other thing she did, and I tell everybody this that comes in with cancer, is that cancer needs one thing to survive. And you of course know what that is. What is it? What does cancer need? It's only
Sugar?
Yes.
Yes.
Sugar. Basically, it'll take any type of carbohydrate that you eat and turn it into simple sugar and live off of it. It doesn't even need nerve supply. And there's a fascinating ongoing study with this group of cells that they took out of this one lady some 60 years ago. And most of the cancer research was done and still may be being performed on this lady's cancer cells. And they keep it alive like in a petri dish or something. They just keep feeding it sugar and watch these cells proliferate. And then, so this is outside of a body. They just keep these cells alive. Then they'll test different types of poisons, chemo, on the cancer cells to see which one works the best or whatever. But she said no to all that. She didn't want to poison her body. She didn't want to radiate. She says, okay, I'm going to cut out all of the carbs. So she went on what we call the cancer killer's diet, which essentially is mostly veggies and very clean meat. So she cut out anything that really turns into sugar. There was no bread, pasta, rice, crackers. And I was inspired by her because here she was at 72 when we met, and she didn't bat an eye. She says, no problem. I can do every bit of that. Didn't even eat fruit. Now she's added all that back in because once she got a clear scan from cancer, once it was all gone, then she added in some healthy carbs, and she's here, 14, 15, maybe 16 years later, doing fantastic. You can do that too. Now, just be cautious. Don't be telling everybody that I'm claiming to cure cancer, because that is not the case at all. I've been turned into the state board I don't know how many times now, but all those claims get dropped because I'm not claiming to cure anything, and they know that. I help the body get as strong as it possibly can. And if you aren't taking care of your spine, you're missing the key thing. Food is important, exercise, obviously, toxicity, getting good sleep, and having great relationships, your peace of mind and soul. Very important. And you can destroy your health with all those things, but your spine is regulating everything. Okay, so that's Miss K. What's another testimony that stands out? What's a great story?
I'd have to say my son, Zachary.
Yes. How in the world is that kid 9 feet tall?
I know.
And he's wrestling?
Yeah, he's on the wrestling.
That is terrifying. If I had to wrestle him, and what is he, 15, 14?
He just turned 15 a couple weeks ago.
Well, I would say he's reached his growth potential for sure. But what happened with Zach? Like, what was awesome about his story?
He didn't start talking until
Oh, yeah.
right before he started kindergarten. He started saying a few words. So he was very behind in his speech. And then I guess it wasn't until he was in about 3rd or 4th grade, we came to see you. And he was very behind in everything, actually, in school. And that was very prevalent. We had talks with the teacher and everything, all of his teachers. And then we started coming to see you. And you had asked me, I remember, if I had a hard birth. And yeah, I did. And you saw something in his upper neck that you had asked me if he was having trouble in school. And I said, yes, he is having a lot of trouble in school. And you started adjusting him regularly. And I guess it was about 4 or 5 months later, like I started noticing he was improving on everything, speech and everything. About 4 or 5 months later, we had the first set of progress reports come out. And everything had gotten better and better, like all his classes, he was, or all his subjects, he was doing better. And now he's in 9th grade, and he's in all honors classes. Next year, he's talking about going into, the pre-IB, or I don't know what they call it, but above honors.
AP
for
courses or
AP
something?
courses, yeah, for next year. So, and he's as smart as a whip and doing amazing. It's just been every single year he's just gotten better and better. And it only took him maybe a year to catch up from 3 years before, being like 3 years behind. It took him like a year to catch up.
You're telling me this, and we don't talk all that much about that particular thing, and it all came rushing back. Kids, there's something about a baby that you watch them grow up with this, and that you see their soul just erupt like a volcano, and you get this kid who was probably diagnosed by teachers and whoever else developmentally delayed.
He was, yeah.
The road that people go down, if they just accept that, is terrifying to me. Because obviously, what do they want to give him? What do all the kids that get diagnosed with developmentally delayed, what do they get? What do the doctors want to give them?
Medication, ADHD.
Yeah, because there's it's typically like ADD type stuff,
ADD.
and typically they don't sleep very well. They're real sensitive to certain foods, and it's just one medicine after another. So they're robbed of this the idea that they're strong and healthy, and they'll start buying into this belief that they are broken, that they, in child vernacular, they think I suck. I've met, I don't know how many people that have told me similar stories like that about how their kids just behave different when they get adjusted. And every one of them, you line them up, and the moms and dads aren't throwing medicine down their throat hardly at all, if ever. They're coming here to get adjusted. So how does a kid who's developmentally delayed start getting adjusted regularly, and then they start catching up in school? This is not crazy, mad, weird, sciencey stuff. This is not high tech. I'm not going to speak over your ability to understand. Your brain and spine have to flow for your hormones, for your cognition, for the motor function to your tongue. That might have been an issue with him.
Yeah.
Where, like, if he wasn't talking until 4 years old, right? Almost 4.
Yeah, 4.
Maybe the
Almost
motor
5.
nerves weren't getting to his tongue. There's these things called cranial nerves that go to your eyes, ears, nose, and throat, your tongue, your cheek muscles, your facial nerve, and all this stuff that comes out from the very top of your spine. In fact, it comes out between the brain and your spinal cord. There's an area in there called your midbrain, and that is right at the very, like just inside of your head where your spinal cord begins, and that can be affected when your spine is kinked up, or what we call subluxated. And nobody looks at that when a baby's born. But that was just sitting in there on him. That part of his spine, where the cognition, the motor function to his mouth, everything, the way your ears even process hearing, he could have been deficient there. But that whole part of his spine had this pressure on it. Well, if you chop off the spine right there, everything dies. Imagine some squeezing pressure that doesn't hurt necessarily, but it's interfering with the way that his body was working. All I did was move the bones so that pressure that was on there is relieved. And then his body can now begin to be super efficient. And I don't care what is going on out there, what you've been through, what your children have been through. If there's a problem in your spine and you get that properly adjusted, the body doesn't have a choice but to get stronger, to behave better. I always talk about that garden. I would encourage you to go watch the previous podcast because I talk about that a lot. Everything in your body, from the way you think, your memory, your ears, your eyes, your heart, your lungs, your hormones, your kidneys, anything you can think of is in your garden that God put there. And you developed it from a sperm and an egg. How cool is that? I mean, we were all like these little bitty things, a sperm and an egg come together, and then all of a sudden, whoosh, there's all these cells growing, and the first thing to develop is your brain and spinal cord. And then that sprouts off little nerves, and all these other cells start coming together to make your organs and your hormone factory and your eyes. It's so cool going in through that development process. And then 9 months later, out you come, and you had no help. There was the body did it. Literally the power of God. I don't know how else to explain it. Science can't explain this. They can say this is what is happening, but how is it powered? So your brain and spinal cord are first, then everything comes together, and that your brain and spinal cord are in charge of this garden. So if your brain isn't getting there, if the hose is kinked, obviously the garden suffers. And just like a real garden, if you leave the kink there, the garden gets worse and worse. And all medicine does, no matter what the drug, all medicine does is cover up the problem. Now, people talk about, Dr. Hooten, you're just bashing medicine. I said, yes, I am. The system has turned into a gigantic, monopoly on keeping people sick. It doesn't make you healthy. Is there a place in the emergency room for it? Of course. I mean, I broke my ankle, something awful, in the early 90s playing soccer. And I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go to the hospital. I tried to make it through the night without taking anything. And about 3 a.m, I woke my roommate up, says, you got to take me to the hospital. I can't take this pain. So there's a place for medicine. But the hospital did not heal me. I took one pill, Vicodin, I think is what it was back in the early 90s. And as far as I can remember, that's the last drug I ever took. So the next night I iced my ankle really well. But there's a place for that. But relying on medicine to be healthy, or just thinking that the doctors from psychiatry to orthopedics and their pain meds, all that is a disaster for you to live by. And that's the biggest thing I do for people but the way we give them hope is we explain how your body works and what you need to do about it to give you authority. You don't need to be a slave to the system that's become nothing more than a drug pushing. I mean, look, we just had the Super Bowl, and the drug commercials were out of control. And there was one of the players just got a gajillion-dollar contract from one of the drug companies to promote the jab, the COVID jab. It's just, we're surrounded by it, and they know that if they get a mom giving their kid into this system with drugs or just accepting this developmentally delayed diagnosis, they've got a customer for life. And really, that's the evil of this world, and the devil really likes that. So look, if you're out there and you need help, we're easy to find. drhooten.com, drhooten.com. We're in the North Dallas area. Just off the top of your head, okay, it's a random question. People come from a long distance to get here. Mm-hmm. What's the longest that you've seen? Who's traveled the furthest, or what's the farthest you've heard of somebody traveling to get here for care?
Gosh. Well, my sister-in-law, she came 3.5 hours from Trinity, and she did that for a long time. And
we've got a family that drives in from Midland.
Yeah.
That they come in twice a month, mm-hmm. and then they'll come in Friday, and I treat them all weekend. Then they go back. That's a 5-hour drive. I've had somebody flown in from Kenya and Colombia.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about.
And the Colombian was 100 years old. And his spine was awesome looking on x-rays. And I gave him a treatment and everything, and he doesn't take a drug for anything. If that's what you want life to be like, and he was functional, if you want your body to be really strong, you want your children's body to be really strong, look us up. You can find us, like I said, in the North Dallas area. If you don't live here and you want to come experience the first visit or two, and then take that information into your hometown and try and find somebody to help you, we can do that for you too. So remember, drugs are bad, God is great, and so are you. This is Dr. Hooten and the lovely Aileen signing off. We'll talk to you next time.